Is it just me, or does something feel really different about this year's obligatory horror celebration? Maybe it's just because my upload day actually lands on Halloween this year, but I've just got this really unsettling feeling about tonight. Maybe it's because Silent Hill, the classic fog simulator on PlayStation 1, is a game that I was supposed to have covered by now. In 2015, plans got in the way and it had to be swapped out for Symphony of the Night. And last year in 2016, I just simply ran out of time and decided to focus on the first medieval game instead. Because I felt like copying Kadikarus apparently. So this year, no more excuses. This game has been stuck in the back of my mind for so long now, pulsating, waiting for its time. And I say, we finally give this beast its moment. Developed by Please Don't Claim My Fucking Video Konami and released in 1999, the very first thing we see is a warning for how disturbing the game is, followed by an opening FMV. This is truly unsettling if I'm being honest. The music just crawls right up your back and burrows into the back of your neck. It's brilliant, but it does annoy me that a vast majority of the scenes depicted here are all moments spoiled from the actual game, but it does set the mood perfectly and fills in the simple story. Heading to the vacation destination of Silent Hill, Harry Mason and his daughter Cheryl have an accident on the way, leading us to the title screen. I'll be playing on easy just to be clear, as I'm way out of my comfort zone with this type of game. Yep, I'm fucked! After regaining consciousness, Cheryl runs off into the fog like a little creep, and we have to chase her down. Already, Atmosphere gets a 10 out of 10. It's such a surreal feeling wandering around in the fog, really not being able to see anything. We soon find ourselves in a dark alleyway as a siren sounds in the distance and the world grows darker. So obviously the natural human reaction is to keep going apparently, leading us to find corpses strung up by barbed wire as the music grows ever more violent. This is possibly the best opening 5 minutes to a game I think I've ever seen. We black out and then wake up in a diner with Sybil Bennett, a police officer, and both characters share some dialogue. Sybil sets off to find a way out of town and leaves us to go and find Cheryl. Within seconds, demonic bats fly in to try and kill us, and they're pretty successful. From the very start of the game, controlling this guy is stiff and awkward, but after a quick check of the manual, which is a work of art by the way, one retry later, we're able to get outside and explore around town. Our main goal as Harry for the entire game is searching to find our daughter, to ultimately work with various other characters we meet in town to try and escape Silent Hill. You realise pretty quickly though that it's not as easy as it seems. We have to search around for clues that lead us to various locations, but getting there is the fun part. The map is misleading to say the least, and soon enough, it's covered in all kinds of scribbles and markings, which is a nice touch. The stiff controls take some getting used to, to, but it doesn't take long before navigation comes with ease. While I understand the tank-like movement is a trope of the genre, and serves as a main source of tension throughout the entire game, a better aiming system would have been appreciated. In certain situations, it's not enjoyable, holding down R2 to ready the gun, while holding L2 to look around clearly for a good shot, then pressing X to fire. It's a bit much, and while we're on the subject, some kind of on-screen health display, maybe integrated into Harry's appearance, would have done wonders. It would save opening up the inventory after each encounter, just to check if I'm dead. Still, they are minor grievances, of course. The real meat of this game is Silent Hill itself. The horror genre in modern times leans very heavily on planting jump scares, without any actual build-up to them, which is such a shame, because the true essence of feeling scared as a human being is usually a case of situation over destination. Yes, tracking down a loved one through a town shrouded in fog is terrifying, of course, but on your own with little to no visibility makes a person uncomfortable. It heightens your senses. People are proven more alert when they feel uncomfortable, so when you start to hear those bumps in the night, the suspense of what could be out there takes over the mind, hopefully leading the player to experience guttural fear. That's why Silent Hill is a winner. True situational tension done to absolute perfection. There are some great locations and set pieces here, but they don't contribute all that much to the overall fear factor in my opinion. Visually, the game is already creepy, but with the addition of a stunning soundtrack, it really becomes the complete package. Lots of ambience with some heart-jolting stuff thrown in every so often. The game can jump from 0 to 100 fairly quickly, shown perfectly back in the diner at the start of the game. But even greater than that is the use of the radio. Whenever an enemy is nearby, it starts to emit static the closer you get. Can you see the enemy out there? Because I fucking can't. So with tensions high and your heart racing, the scares really are your own creation. That sound effect was so shocking to me that I legitimately jumped while playing this, and I'm so fucking glad I did. The only other jumps I ever had were a result of these little fuckers showing up. These ghost babies. They make this squeaking noise and it always sounds before they appear. Little bastards. They can't hurt you though, and as for the rest of the enemies, they're all pretty tame if you ask me. Sure, with carelessness, any of them could kill you in a matter of seconds, but once you figure out how to aim, they're not really a problem. And if you can't be bothered, you can also just run past them, which is kinda sucky. Why would I stand there and waste time, ammunition and health when you can just run by without a care in the world? For a game built around anticipating encounters, they really don't pay off. Well, for regular enemies anyway, they're more akin to a population if you will. Where Silent Hill really starts to pay off is with the nightmares. At certain points in the game, usually after a section of puzzle solving, you hear that ghastly siren in the background. This indicates that Mason has been transported to a figment of his own imagination, to the darkest places in his mind. Entire locations like the school and hospital are switched into a rotting industrial alternative with new challenges to face. The execution here is magnificent. Trick doors, tunnels and false elevators trigger these events, and they're so disorienting in a good way. At the end of these sections normally waits a challenging monster, and what I love is that various clues hint at these monsters beforehand. The fights themselves, however, are still pretty average in my opinion. Just staying out of the way, landing a few shots, and repeating until they're dead. And this is when I'd like to bring up the controls again. With such limited mobility, there is no way anything more interesting could have been done with these encounters. They really shot themselves in the foot with that. Like, I get that it's still challenging and the fact that we're controlling a normal bloke and not some superhero adds to the experience, things that I agree make this game great. But you know what would have made it even better? How about some decent fucking boss fights? I'm seriously conflicted with this game. I played it, I beat it, and I enjoyed pretty much all of it. But the moment I finished and started to reflect over the entire thing, to try and come to some sort of conclusion, I honestly didn't know what to think. My main problem is that a good chunk of the experience is really empty gameplay. As cool aesthetically Nightmare Silent Hill may be, it's the definition of a straight line with nothing off the beaten path besides a few extra pickups. So when you fill it with the most annoying enemies in the game that fly around and swoop, it's just easier to run through to the end goal like I was saying before. One section of the map later on does actually feature a side mission, which plays a hand in determining which ending you get. But you'd never know unless you looked it up, because by this point, you've been trained that there is nothing out there but fog and dead ends. And for the individual locations themselves, while they're all fine enough, God, it can get tedious exploring. To open up a section of this school to progress, you need to complete a puzzle. How anyone would ever figure these out is beyond me, because they require you to have knowledge in things like poetry and astrology to even stand a chance. A lot of them also require specific items, each with only that one specific use, so that means you can't leave any location unsearched. A lot of the doors are locked, which is always a bonus, but you find yourself wasting so much time going into each and every room, kill an enemy or take a hit. Oh, there is nothing in here. Move on to the next room, and in levels like the sewer, you're forever running back and forth from one dead end to another, just avoiding shit. It's not fun gameplay. So when you finally search every room on every floor and finally figure out the puzzle, then you go to the alternate version where you have to search every room and floor all over again, completing more puzzles. This is the meat of the game, and honestly, it is the best part of playing, but when all the challenge is based on out-of-this-world knowledge and finding a specific item that just so happens to blend into the environment flawlessly, it gets tiring. Survival horror? Yeah, the horror of total boredom and disappointment. And in the end, after maybe an hour of gameplay in a certain area, you've only achieved so little, if anything at all. So after everything it took to get here, not being rewarded is the real kick. This is why the lackluster boss fights really bother me, because some decent action for the action moments would have solved this problem. And without it, there is no payoff. No payoff to all the anticipation of a scare, no payoff to all the time I've put into solving these puzzles, and no payoff to all the great storytelling done here. For the most part, anyway. Don't worry, I'm not going into the story specifics because it would get too confusing, and they're best experienced firsthand. Of course, playing through this for the first time, I got the absolute worst ending out of 5. I have looked up the other endings out of curiosity though, and yes, they're better, but still don't really fulfill me for putting the effort in. Gameplay is still stand there, take some shots, and run away. Rinse and repeat, and that really sucks. Overall, the story had me engaged the entire time through a lot of mystery and plot twists, conspiracies and whatnot, but I just don't know how to feel about the entire experience here. Stellar presentation and clever storytelling, with the highlight being the consistent feeling of anxiety and general exploring during the first half of the game, combined with seriously repetitive hollow gameplay elsewhere and a lot of spikes in difficulty and effort in the puzzles. One thing that surprised me was that our radio, the only means of knowing enemies are nearby, never stops working or cuts out to make for an even more terrifying moment. It's these moments that make games, and I hate to say it, but Silent Hill really doesn't have any moments. Sure, there is the opening 5 minutes, the first nightmare alternative, and the twists before the final area, but that's such a small percentage of the game that actually feels truly memorable. I guess to conclude, I did enjoy playing this game, and I can see why it's a classic. I just don't think it lived up to all the hype I've heard over the years, because this game could have been a masterpiece. Its poorer aspects do hurt it to an extent, but more so from the perspective that they potentially held it back from an even higher score. So Silent Hill gets 7 out of 10. I'm going to attribute some of my bigger issues here with the puzzles and gameplay to me simply being unfamiliar with the genre. While I may not personally enjoy it, I can look at this objectively and see that the puzzles are cryptic and creepy, but are also solvable for those truly immersed, or those like myself with a walkthrough on hand. I still think the gameplay leaves something to be desired, as there is never any kind of big payoff you expect from a game like this, or any game for that matter. But it's hard to deny the game is memorable. The feeling of walking through a living nightmare will stick with me after playing this, and despite my complaints, I'd have no issues going through again for round 2. After finally experiencing what this game has to offer after many years in the dark, despite whatever my conflicting feelings may be here, the Silent Hill series is one I look forward to exploring further down the line. And after a long night of this, I actually feel well rested and ready for the next chapter on our journey. Who needs blacking out into a nightmare realm when I've got my own personal portal to hell right here waiting for me? But until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share. I'm Square Eye Jack, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching.